On November 12, 2025, Sunil Koli, a man accused of horrific murders, cannibalism, and dismemberment, walked out of prison a free man. 19 sets of skeletal remains had undeniably been recovered from the drain directly behind the house where he worked. Yet, despite the physical proof of murder scattered across that property, the High Court ruled there was a severe lack of evidence to actually convict the residents. How does a legal system confirm the existence of 19 bodies in a designated house of horrors, and then completely erase all legal guilt nearly 2 decades later? To understand the collapse of this case, we have to look at the geography of Noida in 2005. Specifically, Sector 31, a glittering suburb home to wealthy industrialists, businessmen, and elite infrastructure. Right next to this wealth was Nithari village. The people living in these narrow, closely packed lanes were daily wage workers, street vendors, and domestic helpers. They were the poorest and most invisible people in the area. In 2005, a wave of disappearances began. Children from Nithari were vanishing, one after another, right in the shadow of a large, wealthy bungalow at House D5 in Sector 31. Distraught parents approached the local police, but their complaints were completely ignored for over a year. Officers dismissed the missing children as typical runaways. The victims were poor. The residents of D5 were rich. A clear foundation of systemic class bias allowed the crimes to continue unchecked right under the authorities' noses. It took a local woman frantically searching for her missing daughter to finally force the police into action. On December 29, 2006, a neighbor's tip led authorities to the perimeter of the D5 bungalow. The true scale of the crime emerged when a small skeletal hand was spotted sticking out of the mud. As investigators dug into the drain behind the house, they unearthed 19 sets of human remains hidden away in bags. Police immediately arrested the residents of the property, a wealthy businessman named Moninder Singh Pandher and his domestic helper, Sunil Koli. The allegations that followed gripped the nation. Investigators accused Koli of luring victims with sweets, followed by horrific reports of sexual assault, cannibalism, and suspicions of an organ trade ring driven by the surgical precision of the dismemberments. 2 policemen were eventually suspended for their initial inaction, but that 2-year delay had already done its damage, severely compromising the physical evidence before the investigation even truly began. By 2007, under mounting pressure, India's federal probe agency, the CBI, took over the case. They filed charges sheets in 16 of the 19 known murders. A string of trial court convictions followed. Sunil Koli was repeatedly found guilty and sentenced to death across 13 different cases. Pandher was also initially sentenced to death in 2009. However, his defense team successfully traced his cell phone to Australia during some of the killings, proving he wasn't even in the country when certain crimes occurred. Still, in 2017, a CBI court awarded both men the death sentence in one specific case. To the public, it looked like the perpetrators would finally face execution. But what the public didn't see was the incredibly weak foundation the prosecution was building upon. They were relying on the exact same tainted evidence from the botched local police response in 2005. Then came the reversal. On October 16, 2023, the Allahabad High Court shocked the nation by acquitting Pandher and Koli of almost all charges. The court cited a total lack of concrete evidence and formally expressed its deep disappointment with how the CBI handled the prosecution. This chart shows exactly how a major criminal case falls apart. Because the local police ignored the missing persons reports for 2 years, the crime scene degraded. The forensic integrity of the skeletons and the timeline effectively leaked away before it could be properly documented. With the physical forensics destroyed, the prosecution tried to rely heavily on verbal confessions, but the High Court deemed those legally insufficient to secure a conviction, throwing out the case. The 2023 acquittal was the direct, mathematical result of the local authorities choosing to ignore the pleas of poor parents 18 years earlier. This graphic shows the final scorecard of failure. 19 children murdered, nearly 19 years of legal maneuvering, and 0 convictions for the actual killings. The families of the victims had no money for top-tier defense lawyers. They had no political connections to force an early investigation. They were left with nothing but their grief, while the legal system cleared the primary suspects. The Nithari case serves as a harsh reality check. A justice system operating in an environment of extreme economic privilege will often fail the people who need its protection the most. Today, the House of Horrors remains a grim monument, a reminder of a system that chose to look away simply because the victims were poor.